Hello everyone and welcome to another preview here on the channel, and this one is a special one, the Olympic road race, of course. As always, I'm joined by Mr. Critical himself, Ewan, and Ewan, the Olympics is definitely a special event.
Yeah, exactly. This is the Olympic Games. It is a global spectacle of all sports, from cycling to Greco-Roman wrestling to synchronized swimming, and also to the modern pentathlon. We see everything here. And this year we're going to be in Tokyo, Japan. I don't know about you. We do have these ASO ran criteriums in Saitama and so forth, but I've never watched them. And the Japan Cup and so forth. I've never tuned in, but it's going to be interesting to see some racing in a different continent and within Japan, because we don't usually come to this part of the world.
So in terms of road racing and the Olympics, we had it first in 1896. And then, of course, the last edition was in Rio, where we saw Hreg van Avermaet win in front of Jakob Fuglsang. We've also saw Alexander Vinokurov win in 2012 at the London Olympics in front of Rigoberto Urán, where Mark Cavendish really wanted to win, but didn't quite win, unfortunately, the gold. And we also saw in 2008 in the Beijing Olympics, Sami Sanchez took the gold medal for Spain. But anyways, Ewan, you mentioned that we're in Tokyo. What does the 2021 Olympics look like for the riders?
Well, the route for the road race at the Olympic Games this year, it's a long one, 234 kilometers in length, and it involves some big old mountains: Dushi Road, Mikuni Pass, Kagosoka Pass, as well as Fuji Sanruko, because we're, by the way, on the foot and going round Mount Fuji, the iconic Japanese volcano that's featured in so many pieces of art and pop culture. It's a staple of this part of the world, and we'll be seeing it in all its glory at the weekend. Nevertheless, we'll be rolling around the Fuji International Speedway for a lot of this, with laps bouncing around that. It's a very difficult, complicated loop, which looks like spaghetti, but the final 30K will be the most important part of the race, I'll say that. With 30K to go, we go up the Mikuni Pass. It's 6.8 kilometers long, and that's a 10.1% average gradient. And it also has maximum slope of roughly 16 and 17%. We then have a small plateau before the final climb of the day, the Kagosaka Pass, before the final descent down to the line in the International Speedway, which has hosted the Japanese Grand Prix on 2 occasions in the past, but definitely a difficult route with 4,800 meters of climbing. This should be one we assume for the climbers.
So anyways, where best to start than the 2016 champion team? That was, of course, Belgium, that went with Hreg van Avermaet. And this year they are bringing Wout van Aert, who's fresh off a very triumphant Tour de France for him, and Remco Evenepoel, who has definitely come over his Il Lombardia accident last year, and Thies Benoot and Mauri van Zevenant. And Ewan, this looks like a very strong team.
Yeah, this is a brilliant Belgian team coming into this as the reigning champions, of course. I don't think Hreg van Avermaet is going to get another gold medal here. Judging by his Tour de France performance, it's not quite the same Hreg as we had going into Rio. This time in Tokyo, it could be the turn of Wout van Aert and Remco Evenepoel to do their bits for Belgium. Remco's been out in Japan for, I think, a week or two now, just practicing, getting used to the roads. The one problem here is that we end on a descent. I know people always like to say that Remco's descending is not the top quality because he's crashed multiple times on descents, and he's got a confidence issue there. We'll see how he feels this time round, but he's definitely got the legs, we believe, to contend it. He won the Belgium Tour. He finished third at the National Championships road race on a course that didn't suit him at all, only losing out to Wout van Aert and Ed Turns. And on the topic of Wout van Aert, I think this is a really, really good route for him. It works to his strengths. There's no gargantuan climbs and alpine passes. The final climb of the Mikuni Pass is only 6.8 kilometers in length, so that should suit Wout van Aert very well. And with a downhill finish and potentially a group of about 3 or 4 making it to the line, Wout van Aert's your man, and Belgium could be on to something very, very special alongside Thies Benoot and Mauri van Zevenant, who are going to be 2 brilliant helpers for him.
So anyways, when we mentioned Wout van Aert, we mentioned his amazing Tour de France this year, but of course another rider who also had amazing Tour de France was Tadej Pogačar, who became the youngest 2-time winner of the Tour de France in its history. So yeah, Ewan, Slovenia, they're bringing a very strong team here with Primož Roglič, Tadej Pogačar, Jan Tratnik, and Jan Polanc. Do you think this might be Tadej Pogačar and Primož Roglič doing something special here at the finish?
Yeah, I think this is going to be another Slovenian, maybe not a triumph, but a podium place certainly within their reach. This is an incredibly strong team. Tadej Pogačar, Roglič, Tratnik, and Polanc. This is a brilliant lineup. You can see you have the two helpers. Tratnik will be the first one, then Polanc on the harder mountains to help either Roglič or Pogačar. Which one will it be, however? That is the question. Roglič, of course, this will most likely be his last chance ever to get a gold medal, so he'll do whatever he can to get it. Pogačar has at least 10 years in him. We're going to be in Paris in 2024 and LA in 2028. Paris is a flat course. I don't know about the LA course, but Pogačar might offer this one up to Roglič and say, I could probably win elsewhere. If he does so, then that would be a very fitting ode to him. But Tadej Pogačar, this suits him down to a T. Downhill finish. He's a brilliant descender. He's got a very fast kick on him in a reduced bunch sprint. And if you don't have the likes of Wout van Aert there, then Pogačar would do it. We saw what he did at Liège-Bastogne-Liège this year.
So anyways, you mentioned Tadej Pogačar's success in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and he won it while still being the defending Tour de France champion. If he were to win this Olympic road race, he would actually be the first person in history to win both the Tour de France and the Olympic road race medal in the same season. Of course, Bradley Wiggins won the time trial Olympics in 2012 when he was still the Tour de France champion, of course. But anyways, talking about a national team that hasn't won the gold medal since 2004, that is Italy, and they're coming here with a very strong team. And one rider you really like and one rider you really don't like. Actually, a few you do like. The surprise package of the Giro d'Italia this year, Damiano Caruso, Gianni Moscon, of course, the bad boy of cycling, and Alberto Bettiol looking to recapture some glory this year, and Giulio Ciccone as well, and then the shark from Messina, Vincenzo Nibali, rounding out that 5-man squad. And Ewan, who do you think is the leader here?
Well, this Italian team is definitely the most exciting on paper for me. Caruso, second place at the Giro, of course, with former Giro champion Nibali. Ciccone, who's back from injury following that crash on the Passo San Valentino at the Giro d'Italia. Also, Alberto Bettiol, who won stage 19 of the Giro, and Moscon, who was climbing brilliantly at the Giro as well. So, incidentally, a whole team made up of people who went to the Giro d'Italia instead of the Tour de France. Nibali, of course, wasn't in attendance, but the rest all in the Corsa Rosa. Nevertheless, I don't know who the leader's going to be. It could be any of these guys who get a medal. Maybe not Nibali anymore, but he left the Tour de France early to target this. So he certainly has some ambitions for Tokyo. But I would say Ciccone, this is a route that would really suit him. He's not the best one-day rider. We see that in the classics. He's not really up there. But if he can transfer his skills on the road to this, he could certainly be up there. However, I'd love to see Alberto Bettiol get a podium here. He's one of my favorite riders at the moment. And he's a brilliant one-day racer. And let's not forget, he was climbing up there at the Giro. He was in that front group a lot of the time. And in the first week of racing, he was almost in the pink jersey on numerous occasions. So I think Bettiol is definitely someone that you should keep your eye on here for the road race. And if not, well, don't be surprised if you see the Azzurri on the final podium in the Fuji Speedway.
So next we have a team that haven't tasted Olympic success in the road race since 2000, and that was of course Germany with Jan Ullrich. And Ewan, Maximilian Schachmann looks like he's going to be leading this squad after choosing not to go to the Tour de France, and he's been on stellar form this year, winning his second Paris-Nice in a row. And do you think the German can do something at this year's Olympics?
Yeah, Max Schachmann for me is one of my big bets. I think he's got a really good chance of doing well. He's one of the very few people who hasn't rid a Grand Tour yet this year, and he's looking to focus on the Olympic Games. So Maxi Schachmann is definitely someone that you need to keep your eye out on. The terrain and one-day racing factor of it could suit the German. And usually in these Olympic road races, sometimes we get an unpredictable finale and unpredictable victor. And Max Schachmann's kind of in that bracket where, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he won, but he's not the first person that jumps to your mind. On his team, Simon Geschke, who looked good for Guillaume Martin at certain points at the Tour de France, Nikias Arndt, who's a wonderful road captain, and Emil Buchmann, who finally has recovered from his crash at the Giro. He was up there in the final week of the Tour de France, properly riding up with the best climbers again. So Maximilian Schachmann could really surprise people here and and get Germany's third gold medal for them and hopefully wear a golden helmet next year.
So anyways, one nation that had a bit of an underwhelming Tour de France, shall we say, and that was, of course, Colombia. They're coming here with not Egan Bernal, but Nairo Quintana, Rigoberto Urán, Sergio Higuita, and Esteban Chaves, who has been reclaiming some form, and we saw that with his 13th place in the Tour. Of course, Rigoberto Urán was there as well and slipped down to 10th in the end. But Ewan, do you think Sergio Higuita is potentially their chosen son for this Olympic race?
Higuita should be their leader, but I don't know whether he will. Colombia has notoriously been fairly underwhelming on the international stage ever since Rigoberto Urán somehow got a silver medal on the flat course in London. We haven't actually seen a Colombian finish on the podium at the UCI World Road Race Championships, even when we've had routes that should suit them. For that reason, I'm going to say Colombia are out the equation. I'd love to see Higuita do well and sprint away. He's a very, very quick rider, got a number of top 10s at the Tour de France, top 20 as well. So Higuita definitely has the legs to do it, but I just can't see it happening with Colombia. There's too many egos and too many things clashing here. Esteban Chaves will want to do well for himself. Nairo Quintana as well, being Nairo Quintana, will want victory. So it's going to be quite isolating for Higuita, I assume. So maybe not Colombian success in Tokyo this year.
Yeah, I might have to agree there because, as you said, they've had courses such as Innsbruck and they did absolutely nothing. So probably not going to be Colombia's year this year. But yeah, who knows? Sergio Higuita could potentially be their shining light. But anyways, one rider who's returning to international action after his hiatus, that is Tom Dumoulin with the Netherlands. And of course, they had a very successful Tour de France, the Dutch riders, with Bauke Mollema taking a stage win and Wilco Kelderman finishing in the top 5. Dylan van Baal is also one of the riders here. And Ewan, do you think this Dutch team could potentially do something in the road race?
Well, the Netherlands, it's a solid team. Dumoulin, Mollema, and Kelderman, I assume they're leaders. Which one will it be, though? We haven't seen much of Dumoulin this year. Wilco Kelderman is not aggressive enough to win a one-day race outright. Mollema might be their chosen son, seeing as he's won Lombardy in the past, and this profile looks fairly similar in terms of its elevation gains. So Mollema could be the man. Interesting that they brought Yuri Havik as their final rider. He's good, but I didn't think he'd make an Olympic squad when you've got plenty of Dutch talent in their ranks. But Dylan van Baarle as well is also going to be here. Netherlands could be aiming for a top 10, but I think a podium is not going to be on the cards this year. Yeah, bridge too far for them. They should probably focus on the women's race.
So reluctantly, we're going to finish our little overview on one of the teams that Ewan doesn't particularly like, which is quite funny because it is the team of his nationality, and that is the GB team. They're bringing Geraint Thomas here, who of course won the Tour of Romandy this year, Adam Yates, who won the Vuelta a Catalunya, and then Simon Yates, who won the Tour of the Alps, and Theo Gegenhardt, of course, we remember, won the 2020 Giro d'Italia. And Ewan, do you think this squad has been hampered by a hard Tour de France, or, Geraint Thomas seems to have had a hard Tour de France in particular. But do you think potentially the rested Adam Yates could be the leader of this team?
Yeah, I think Adam Yates is going to be the best one in the British ranks. Both Yates are good one-day races. Geraint Thomas, not so much anymore, especially on a hillier route. And Theo Gegenhardt will definitely be a lieutenant like he was at the Tour de France. However, Thomas and Gegenhardt let me down at the Tour de France. Simon Yates also let me down. He was in the breakaway on the stage to Le Creusot. Pretty anticlimactic result from him. And he crashed out of the race eventually. And I just think it's too much for him at the moment. I don't think we're going to see Simon Yates in the podium. Adam Yates, maybe he's winding up for the Vuelta, so he might have the legs unlike the other two. So it's not going to be Britain's year. I'm not going to be flying my Union Jack, and it's going to be tough to see them do well. Well, we do not have time to mention all the teams and riders at the Tokyo 2020 road race. However, we will just cover some now, including the silver medalist from Rio 2016, of course, Jakob Fuglsang, the bronze medalist, Rafał Majka, alongside Michał Kwiatkowski, former world road race champion. Don't forget that France are also bringing David Gaudu, while Spain are coming along with Valverde, the Izaguirres, and Omar Fraile. Nevertheless, Ecuador are bringing a strong double act in Jonathan Narvaez and Richard Carapaz, whilst Portugal brings Joao Almeida, and Switzerland are providing us with a whole host of riders, including Mark Hirschi and Gino Meda.
So anyways, now we come to our favorite part of the preview, and that is, of course, our predictions. And Ewan, it's always really hard to predict an Olympic road race, but who is your top 3 for the medals at this year's Olympic road race?
So usually I either go for super safe or quite off the wall. And this time I'm actually going to go for a very safe pick. So third place, I'm going to say goes to Max Schachmann. Second place goes to Tadej Pogačar. And the win goes to Wout van Aert of Belgium. However, I'm willing to have this all broken up on the day. And it should be a really, really exciting race, an unpredictable profile, and certainly a lot of big stars from different nations.
Well, it seems like I'm going a bit safe as well. I'm going to say the winner is going to be Wout van Aert, and then second place is going to be Tadej Pogačar, so he won't get that achievement that he was looking for. And then third place, we're going to have Joao Almeida. So anyways, for this previews bonus round, we're going to say, where will the defending champion, Hreg van Avermaet, who has actually worn that golden helmet for 5 years now, where will he finish in this race in Tokyo?
I think Hreg is probably going to be used up as a helper for either Wout van Aert or Remco. So I'm going to say he finishes in 50th place.
I will say 27th. So anyways, that's it for this preview. Make sure to let us know down below what your prediction for this Olympic road race is, of course. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure to, and of course, why not join us for our live commentary stream of the race as well. It's going to be at crazy times here in the UK, but anyways, it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for watching, and of course, have a nice day.